Hi, Shalom. So today I'm going to speak about saving food again, and this time saving food with fermentation, creative fermentation. What I discovered is that I have some almonds that were in water in the refrigerator for so long that they were not attractive anymore. It happens once in a while, and I did show yesterday those fermented almonds. So this is what we're going to do today in a different method. Here, what I did actually was covering the almonds in vinegar. So once you start making your own vinegar, remember that this vinegar is a preservative and you can use it anytime you want to preserve something that you feel maybe doesn't go to the right direction, or you just want to make preserved, you have something, a surplus of something and you want to preserve it. So just putting it in the jar, covering it with vinegar, waiting for a few days, and see what happens. It preserves and it becomes really, really tasty. That's too simple. So I will show another idea in a moment with those almonds. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about soaking and why those almonds even made it to the water, right? Because usually what we have is dried almonds and they can stay in our pantry for a long time without getting bad. And that's like very basic way of preservation is drying. Dried food doesn't go bad so easily. Why? Because life is not there, or less life is there, right? Because what was taken is the moisture, is the water. And water is life. The living almond has some watery part, and then we dry them up to preserve them. When we want to eat them, we can eat it like that, of course. It's crunchy and tasty. However, it's more healthy to soak them. So first of all, I'm going to show you how I soak almonds. It's very simple. I put almonds in a jar and I cover it with water. This is it. So simple. So recommended to put some almonds in a jar at night, and then during the night, so it's like 6 to 12 hours before we eat them, they sit in the water, they soak up, they become bigger, they soak up the water, become a little bigger, become more watery, better for digestion, just easier on our digestion. So it is recommended, sometimes it's called living food because we put water in the food and make them more lively. And we actually soak also the walnuts and any nut, even pistachios, and also dried fruits. So if we're using dates or dried plums, whatever it is, we soak them for some time. So it depends on the item, we soak for different times. Just experiments and see at what point you like the fruit or the nut. Any case is better to eat them after soaking. With almonds, after 6 to 12 hours, we will find also that they are very, very easy to peel. So as you can see here, I'm peeling the almonds quite much more easily after it has been soaked. There's no comparison to dried almond that I cannot peel at all. In the peel, there are some materials that are there to preserve the nut, which is actually the seed of the plant, right? And this preservative, again, the idea of preservation, those preservatives that are good for the plant are not so good for us. In the case of almonds, it's a little bit of cyanide and also some other materials. So after soaking, we also get rid of those materials and also of the dust and whatever that stuck on the almonds on the way to us. So there are many, many benefits for soaking. I recommend it anyway. So now we understand what the almonds did in the water. What happens if we forgot the almond in the water and more than 12 hours passed? It happens. And yes, after a few days in the fridge, the water will start not feeling very healthy, not feeling very good, and also the almonds will get some kind of a smell or some kind of a taste. They will not be attractive anymore. Why? What happened? We got germs develop in this water, right? And we want those germs to be our friends, and we're not sure that they're our friends when there's nothing else in the water other than just the water itself. So two things that I want to just mention today is, like I said, covering anything with vinegar will preserve it, and also cover it with salt water. And this is what we did with the cabbage last time, remember? And look at the color. Just in case you don't remember how the color was, that's how it was, okay? That's when it started, like Avital made this cabbage yesterday, and here is a cabbage after a month. And now it's ready to eat, it's fermented, and that means that we grew the germs that we wanted, and the way we did it is by creating conditions that are anaerobic and have salt in them. So the conditions were not very friendly for the germs that, for example, just water is very friendly for all kinds of germs, right? And here it's only friendly to lactobacillus, germs from the lactobacillus family. And those are really good for our digestive system. And they're good in general in our environment. Just like yeast. So yeast and lactobacillus and other germs families that are really friendly for us. And over many, many years, people have learned to develop those kinds of germs. And it was before there were laboratories and before there were even scientists. So how people learned it is they learned it from their grandmothers. And they learned it in a not so sterile environment. So kitchens maybe looked more like this and less like a cooking show. And everything they did maybe didn't look so perfect and it wasn't so clean, but they knew something about fermentation and they did this work very well. And they developed intuition and they developed the sense of what works and what doesn't work from experience and not from YouTube movies. So yes, I'm on YouTube right now, I know, but I try to pay attention and I try to put our focus on the things that are not necessarily so perfect and so clean. I believe it's a more healthy world when we are a little bit more connected to the real stuff and what happens in our real homes, including the stuff that spoils. And we want to learn how to work with it so that we don't waste food. So now I'm going to make my my special dish with almonds that almost spoiled. So what I'm doing now is I'm getting rid of the water, and then I'm going to pour my almonds into a little bowl and cover it with boiling water. We don't need to soak it in boiling water for too long. 15 seconds even are enough, and maybe a little more. And then it's really, really easy to peel them, even more than before. It's just really, really easy. So I take a jar, a beautiful little jar. I don't have so many almonds. And I'm putting my peeled almonds in the jar. And I'm going to cover them with the apple jam from last month. So remember in the episode about vinegar making, we worked with apples that looked really bad and usually would be thrown away. So we didn't throw it away. We made this amazing preserve. And now we have, after a month, we have an amazing fermented apple mousse that is really tasty, believe me. And I'm taking this and I'm covering my almonds with the apple. And why am I doing that? So the logic of that is that the almonds started to ferment without my direction. They just did whatever they wanted in our refrigerator. And you can feel it's quite good, but maybe not going in the right direction. So once I put something that is definitely in the right direction, I cover it with those apples. I make sure it will not spoil. I mean, you can call it, it spoils, right? It ferments, but the right families of germs are coming to colonize the jar. So if there are a few germs that are not to my liking, they will give up, because the whole idea with germs, that they multiply so fast, is that most of them are neutral. They're not bad, they're not good, they're just there. Some of them, very little of them, is really bad and harmful for us, and some of them are really good and beneficial. And the way to work with that is to make starters, like this apple jam. It's a starter of good germs. I know that it's good because I taste it, I smell it, and I already know how good fermentation feels like. Yeah, I trust my senses, and like we said before, if you don't trust your knowledge yet, you better have a friend that has been fermenting for many years, so they can give you, oh, this feedback. This goes to the right direction, this doesn't feel so good. And you can always play and add things to other things and just balance out your creations. So I'm adding this here. And I make sure that there's no air. So I get rid of the air bubbles, right? And so now I have this jar with almonds that are going to ferment in a good way, and they're going to be tasty in a few days. And we will eat them very happily. And I just took almonds from the fridge that were non-attractive to people to something that will be attractive to most of the people in the house, and they will be eaten instead of wasted. So I think it's a success. I thank you very much for being with me as I was doing this magical process. And I invite you to tell us about your success stories from the kitchen, your magic with saving foods, in our comments in the YouTube, or send us an email. We would love to hear. And please do join our Patreon page and become our patrons, so we can continue discover all kinds of discoveries in the kitchen and in the garden and in the house, and share them with all of the world. Thank you very much again, and yeah, see you tomorrow.